Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, allowances made for the fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing nonprofit educational or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair. All topics are for entertainment purposes only. None of the information presented in this video or by VGIRLTV should be taken as fact. Every situation is based on personal experience. Image Boutique is located in the Centro Comercial de los Pueblos Mall, located in Panama City, just 15 minutes away from Tocumen Airport. We specialize in hair care, wig extensions, and much more. Come visit us. Image Boutique is located in the Centro Comercial de los Pueblos Mall, located in Panama City, just 15 minutes away from Tocumen Airport. Hello, guys. Hi, guys. Welcome to the channel. Let's do a mic check to make sure that you guys can hear me. In the comment section, just let me know that you can hear me so that we can start. I know you guys are super excited about the next guest that we're going to have on this beautiful Tuesday, okay? So just let me know in the comment section that you can hear me. Perfect, okay? I'm just going to make one more announcement before we start because there's still people coming in, so I want to give people a chance to come in the live, okay? Okay, so I want to share this with you guys. For those of you who already know, you guys know that I am doing a toy drive for the children of Colón City. It's a specific group of children. They live in Colón City, which is the main city. They are predominantly brown and black children. They are doing amazing work in school. And I think it's time that we give back to the city of Colón. So this is the information for the toy drive, guys. If you are in the States and you are wanting to give, you can give to the GoFundMe link. If you are in Panama and you want to donate, you can buy a toy from the age of 0 months all the way up to 14 years old, boy or girl, and you can drop it off at any one of our locations. I would like to have this completed by December 1st so that I can get my team together so that we can wrap things up and be super organized for Christmas, okay? So that is something that I wanted to share with you guys. The link to the GoFundMe will be in the description box. Those of you who already donated, I want to thank you. I have already purchased items. It's in the community tab of my YouTube channel. So you can also see the receipts. I will be posting the receipts, or I am posting the receipts for everything that I buy. All the information of the funds that have been donated is public knowledge. You guys can see how much have been donated so far, and the receipts of what I purchased is up there as well. Okay, I just got back to Panama, guys, so I'll be purchasing more things as the funds come in and while I'm here. Okay, perfect. I'm glad that you can hear me loud and clear. Wow. Okay. enough of me talking, okay? So welcome guys, welcome back to VGIRLTV live on Tuesdays. You know we go live on Tuesdays, and I always try to have an Afro-Panamanian, someone who is extremely influential to Panamanian culture. And this guest, okay, I am bringing to VGIRLTV, okay guys? His name is Mr. Louis Marshall. Welcome, welcome, Mr. Louis Marshall to VGIRLTV. Guys, welcome him to the channel.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Shanna James, for inviting me.
So, guys, a brief history on how I met Mr. Louis Marshall, which is very funny, is because growing up, he has always been a pillar in the family, right? Family events, you know, Panamanian people always have some type of function. And I remember going to his home as a youngin' in Poughkeepsie, and he has daughters around my age, and we used to always link up. And who knew, as I am a grown adult, that we would reconnect again in such a positive way, right? So my mother-in-law reached out to me one day and she said, you know who you need to get on your channel? And I'm like, who? And she's like, you need to get Louis Marshall. And I was like, Louis Marshall? Okay, this name sounds so familiar. So she sends me a clip of him in Panama being interviewed on the news station. And I said, wait a minute, I know him. And she was like, you do? And I said, yes, of course I know him. So once she told me that, I said, okay, I already know what I have to do, okay? And so that's how I got him on the channel. And I want to say welcome. His story is amazing. He has an amazing story. Before we get into his story, I'm going to allow him to introduce himself so you guys can be familiar with who he is.
Again, thank you very much, Shanna James, for inviting me. And my name is Louis R. Marshall. I started my journey in life in what is known as Rainbow City, First Corner. And we had a short stay because unfortunately my father, Walter Eugene Marshall, died at the age of practically 40 years of age, and I was just 9 years of age. So based on the policies and procedures of the Canal Zone, and unfortunately we had to evacuate the housing, and it's done within a short period of time. I think the time frame was like 90 days, and you had to leave the premise. Something that a lot of people in the Canal Zone didn't think about is that you were simply serving the Canal Zone according to their needs. And once you could not fulfill those needs based on sickness, death, whatever occurred, you will have to leave despite your financial conditions or situation. So my mother had to leave with 3 boys. And at that time, she had to make a decision to send me to live in Riobao with some cousins, which I did for a few years while attending República de Nicaragua. But she really wanted me back home in Colón. So her wonderful friend, who is the Bible called a friend who is closer than a brother, she adopted me and one of my brothers to come back to Zone School, which we did, Rainbow City School. I was there for approximately 3 years. Then her husband get transferred to Gamboa. As I said before, you serve at the pleasure. So therefore, I get to Gamboa, and I did not adjust well. It was just too laid back for me, coming from 4th Street, Colón. So I decided to go back and live in Rio Bajo and take 2 buses to Paraíso every day to school, because Gamboa don't have a high school. And this is what I did until I graduated from high school.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know, because I know I have people, some people here they're not from Panama. Where is Rainbow City?
Rainbow City is part of the Canal Zone territory in terms of the agreement when they were constructing the canal. And this is a region or area that was set aside primarily for the West Indians that were working on the canal. It was 100% under the purview of the United States government, known as the Canal Zone. So today it's reinstated back into the Republic of Panama. But at that time, not even Panamanians could transit through there without having a purpose. It would be called trespassing. So Rainbow City was service housing for people working on the canal.
And it's located in Cologne, right?
In Cologne, that's correct.
Okay. So let's fast forward. You grew up in Cologne. You end up going to school in Panama City, Rio Abajo, which, for those of you who don't know, Rio Abajo is part of Panama, where it's predominantly, well, not now, but back then it was predominantly brown and black people. We lost Louis. Hopefully we can get him back here. But let me just explain. So it's part of Panama City, where it's predominantly brown and black people, West Indian people. So if you ever have a chance to come to Panama, I always encourage people to visit Rio Abajo. I don't know what happened to Mr. Lewis Marshall with his camera, but let me give him a call to find out what happened. Hold on. Sorry, guys. You know, this is technology. And technology, we always have issues. Come on YouTube, Panama Police. There's an annual parade. Yes, there is. All right, guys. Let me call Mr. Marshall to find out what happened to his camera. You know, we wouldn't be the same if we didn't have issues. Let me play some music for you guys in the meantime. Okay, guys.
I'm sorry about
All
that. I don't
right.
know what transpired.
Okay, guys, we're back. We had a little technical difficulties, but we're back. Okay? You know this would not be VGIRLTV if we didn't have some drama. Okay. So, what we were talking about. Okay, yes. Okay, so let's see. Let's go through the comments real quick and see. Was Rainbow City was renamed Alco Iris. Wait, we can hear your background. We can hear you guys. Carol in the background. Okay, we're good now. We're good,
Okay,
guys,
thank
right?
you.
Okay, good. Okay, so let's fast forward to now. You're in Panama, and so now, at what point did you decide to go to America?
Well, I graduated in 1966 from Paris High School. In 1967, I traveled to the United States. My mother was already there. So I moved to the United States and resided with my mom. And during that time was the Vietnam War. So I was drafted. Since I went to the United States as a permanent citizen, I was drafted within months and found myself, going through the process of, basic training, AIT. And right after my AIT, I was selected among a group to journey to Vietnam, at which point I arrived there and end up in what is known as the 25th Infantry Division, which was infantry. So that was, I call it the worst period of my life.
Okay, so let's pause real quick before we get into that deep. What year did you actually go to the States?
1967.
Okay, the reason why I'm asking and why 1967 is super important, guys, is because this was in the middle of the civil rights movement, right?
That's correct.
Now, your mom was already there prior to you getting there, which means that she was there while the movement was going on. Now,
Right.
did you guys know what was going on in the States when you were in Panama?
Yes, maybe not 100% of the issues, but I was familiar with some of the issues because I would spend time trying to find out what was going on there, knowing that that was going to be my journey. So I was sort of informing myself for when I arrived, I will not be totally skewed of what's going on.
And that didn't deter you in any way, like because it was such a high climate when racism and inequality for Black people were so high in the U.S. How come you weren't deterred by that?
Well, two things. One, uh, thinking about going to the United States, comparing with what I was living with in Panama, I don't think I had much to lose. I'll be very frank with you. I was not among those who were fortunate to uh, get a job right after graduation. So I was struggling to try to get started. And economically, I had nothing hardly to sustain me. So going to the States was a new beginning. And I saw that as an opportunity and a challenge. And I went there with a basic idea, which was failure is not an option, because that's what my mom instilled in me from very early. Regardless of how her life was, failure was never going to be an option. I didn't exactly know how we was going to overcome these things, but she instilled that kind of a mindset that just keep pressing on. So that's what I did.
So now, once you got to the States, now, so you're in the States, and things are a little bit different because, and I don't know if this was your experience, but when you go to America, they see you. It doesn't really matter where you're from. They see you as a Black man or a Black person. And being as though you weren't a Black American, because a lot of times people always say that there's a difference experience between a Black American and an Afro, whomever, whether it be Afro-Panamanian or someone Afro-Jamaican or whatever, is different. Were you treated like the regular Black American, or there was some sort of a difference what you got there? And I'm not talking about once you got drafted to the war. I'm talking about once you stepped foot in the States.
Be honest with you, I don't think I was treated in anywhere differently, at least to my knowledge. In fact, I was able to get a job in a very short period of time. I was working for Scientific America, a publishing firm, and among the candidates, about 8 people showed up to be interviewed for the job, and some were white, some were Black American, and I was shocked that I was the only one that they told to stay behind, which means I was hired. So I had a very good beginning as far as when I arrived there. First, I worked in a factory for 1 month, and then from there, I ended up at Scientific America publishing firm. Uh, and I ended up there for quite a few years. Even after coming back from Vietnam, I went there and continued to work while studying criminology, and they were receptive to helping me study by every semester. It was kind of strange. I'm already getting paid by the military to go to school, and Scientific America was giving me a check every time they saw my grades, saying, As long as you pass your classes, we're going to give you this stipend to encourage you for an education.
Okay, let's take it back to the Vietnam now. To Vietnam. Now, you were drafted to go to war. How old were you? What, 18 at the time?
Well, almost 19 years of age.
Now, the Vietnam War was a pretty big deal, right? Especially for what they were fighting for, and what was going on in America at the time. Were you scared? What was your thought process once they said, "Hey, you're going to war"?
First instinct was surprise because nobody's planning to go there. Uh, but once I got my orders and I took it home and let my mother see it, and I was on leave, I went to Panama and just tried to clear my head. And after doing my 2 weeks in Panama, I came back and I was shipped out to Vietnam. My initial instinct was not so much fear. I was more curious about what's going to happen while I'm there. And that curiosity led to asking questions and staying alert. And unfortunately, learning to accept the reality that we're not all going to make it back home. I lost quite a few people there. Not, I won't say a few, quite a lot of people from my division and my unit. And at the same time, I was able to see a few Panamanians that in one instance, I was coming back to see the medic for a minor situation that took place with me. And I was told that I could not stay overnight in that camp because I had what is known as a Chai Kung pistol at my side. And the MP said to me, "No, you can't sleep in here with that gun." And I said, Are you crazy? I'm coming from the field. I'm not a rear echelon soldier, so I don't separate from my weapons. And somebody tapped me on my shoulder, and it was Lucha Pearson. I don't know if you know him. I don't know if he's on right now. And he said to me, "Compa, if you don't hand them the weapon, you can't sleep in here tonight." And I turned over the weapon, and that's how I was able to stay that night. But it was very unpredictable every day that I was there. And Forky Ford from Paris, so I met him there also. Um, Alan Lewis from Rainbow City. Uh, Quite a few Panamanians at different times when the unit is moving on, because we don't stay stationary because we're infantry, and we get orders to move from one part of the Vietnam to the other based on where the firefights are occurring. And the infantry usually go forward, unfortunately, expecting that they're going to confront the enemy. And sometimes they were better prepared than we were in terms of the surprises that we received.
So I know that you mentioned that there was quite a few Panamanian people that was also in Vietnam at the time. So my question to you is, why do you feel that there were so many Panamanians? Do you feel that it was the easiest way to get what they would say straight at the time? That's why there were so many Panamanians in the army.
I have to tell you that you're right on target because when I was drafted, there was at least 15 Panamanian at the base when I arrived. And there was a little incident that took place with me immediately. The MPs came and got me because I was late in reporting. And a lot of these guys were there from after the fight with different boxers from Panama. I don't want to call names. And they stayed after the boxing match. And they were trying to find a way to stay in the country. And the United States were hard pressed for people to come into the military. So they did not reject them. They were glad to see them. And I was among the draft that was considered the first draft where the military actually went down the line 1, 2, 3, Army, 1, 2, Marine, 1, 2, 3, Army. And this was the first time they ever did that. And one or two of the Panamanians ended up in the Marines. I can remember one in particular, Gonzalez, and fortunately he just passed away 2 years ago. But me and most of the rest of them ended up in the Army. And in basic training, we were like 7 of us on the same base. And yes, they knew that we were from somewhere else because some of us got into a few altercations while in basic training.
Now that brings me to this now. So This is a very important question because even with me growing up, and I was born in America, but American people didn't see me as American because my family and my parents were not American. So they didn't see me as an American. They saw me as an outsider. So now, you being a born Panamanian, you clearly have an accent. You are in the army. You have Black Americans that were also fighting in Vietnam War, in the Vietnam War. Um, how was that experience? How was that experience considering, you were Afro-Panamanian, you have Black Americans. Did you guys get along? Did you have differences? Were you seen indifferently because of cultural differences?
Well, one thing about a combat zone, it neutralizes everybody. I don't care if you come from an upper class, lower class, or just been considered, less than based on how people, naive thinking. It doesn't permeate itself that much because we need each other, especially if you're
Right.
infantry. I will say it may be more prevalent in the Air Force where people are more laid back, more relaxed in many instances, versus when you're infantry, you need the guy next to you. I don't care how tall, short, white, black. He may be the guy that when you get hit, he may be the guy that have to help you to stay alive. And yes, I've experienced that from white and black soldiers when we got caught up in firefights. And I don't think at that moment you're qualifying black or white. One of the things that stood out was, at least that I experienced, was quite a few of the people in my unit based on the terrain will develop these red, heavy sores on their skin. And they will ask me, say, Panama, how come you don't get that? And I will jokingly say to them, facetiously somewhat, say to them, hey, listen, I am African, descendant of Africa via the West Indies. I said, the melanin in my body and everything else, we can handle this kind of weather and terrain, which was very much like a monsoon rain at times. But these people will break out with different sores on their body. I felt bad for some of them. So they will have to take them back to some of the areas where they were treated. And I never had anything like that on my skin. And they couldn't understand it, not one. So that was one of those unique, independent situations where they could tell immediately that there was a difference.
Now, I do want to ask this one question because you just mentioned a very important part, a very important part of history that I did not mention, that you are Panamanian via the West Indies, right? A lot of people, especially people from Brooklyn, they are Panamanian, but they have a West Indian background. What was your background?
Well, my grandparents are from Jamaica. My grandfather was the head of the Salvation Army in the Republic of Panama, and something occurred, and he went back to Jamaica. So, yeah, that's where my roots lies. And as I said before, that's if you want to extend it back to Africa, the Cimarrones, I consider myself descendant of that particular group of blacks.
As you should, because at the end of the day, we are all Africans at the end of the day.
There you go.
Okay, so let's fast forward now. The wars has ended. Thank God you have made it out alive, right? What did you do after that?
When I came back, I went right back to Scientific America Publishing Firm. Based on the law, they cannot dismiss me. They have to take me back if I want the job. So I went back there and began, like I said, enroll in college. And I decided to study criminology. And Scientific America was so receptive to encouraging me to get an education that, like I said, they were actually giving me honorarium. I don't know what else to call it. Every semester that ended and I showed my grade, they will give me a little check commending me for that. But Uncle Sam was paying the full freight. So I graduated from New York City Community College, which is, I think the name has been changed over the years now. That's in Brooklyn. And I then graduated from John Jay College of Criminal Justice. And I continued and did my master's degree in criminology at Long Island University.
One question I did want to ask you: Scientific America, that's the name of the company, right? Who owned the company? Was it an American-based company? Were they Jewish?
I didn't, I wasn't able to determine if they were Jewish or not, but they're 100% white. And
Okay.
I have to say, they treated me with the utmost respect, the owners of that company. As I said to you, they reached out to me and encouraged me. And I was among the few blacks working there. There was not a lot of black people working there, to be honest with you. And it's predominantly women were working there. But they were very receptive to reaching out to me, knowing that what I'm studying is not going to help in terms of their particular job, because I wasn't studying anything about writing or dealing with research for science or anything of that nature. But they ignored that completely, and based on their contractual agreement with the union, they will pay as long as you went to college. It was an incentive to encourage you to better yourself. And I did that. I served there 15 years before I actually decided to move on with the encouragement from my wife. At the time when I got my degrees, I was a little tentative about going out there, and she said to me, you have outlived that place, and with all your education, you need to move on. And at that point is when I took the test for different law enforcement agencies, and I ended up, I did very well on all of the tests for different agencies, police department, corrections, city, state. And then I asked myself the question, where do you feel that you fit in based on your experience in life? And my answer to myself was, I'm a people person. I have lived in so many communities in Panama in a short time. So people has always been my circle. And I felt that I could make a difference in the lives of these men.
Panamanian 507 PTY says something that has always distinguished Panamanians equal brains.
Thanks for the compliment.
So you did the city test, you passed numerous tests, you ended up at the end in corrections, correct?
New York State.
New York State.
Not city, state.
Okay. And then so did you go directly into what, for those of you who don't know, he is the first Afro-Panamanian man to ever become superintendent of one of the most dangerous correctional facilities in the world. Okay, you can look it up. This is not me. Sing Sing, right? So you weren't in corrections. You just went straight into superintendent.
No, I did not.
Or was there something else before that?
There's a few things before that. You ready?
Okay. Yes, I'm ready. We ready.
Okay. I started off as a bilingual correction counselor for New York State. That means I am the intermediary between the inmates and the staff as far as security. So when inmates have issues, whether it's with relationships, family, internal issues, that counselor is supposed to sit down with them quarterly and do an assessment and counsel them the best way you know how. I was only a counselor for about approximately 3 years, and I was a counselor at a maximum security known as Green Haven Maximum Security, and that was no playhouse either. Just going to the entrance and you see the size of the walls is petrifying. So I was a counselor there, and then I decided to go to another smaller setting where I developed a program called Insights. And I worked there for a while. And then I left from there and became a senior counselor at Fulton Correctional Facility in the South Bronx. And while I was there, the commissioner was facing some issues because apparently we didn't provide enough programs for women. So Bedford Hill Maximum Security Prison had a lot of visits from female actresses such as Glenn Cove, and they helped to bring a lawsuit against the commissioner that he didn't provide programs for the women. And we were in a little panic, and they asked if anyone can start a substance abuse program for the women. And I said, I'll do it, because I had taken the initiative to participate in programs dealing with substance abuse on my own time. The government was not paying for it. I was curious and I wanted to learn more about it. So therefore, I raised my hand, and my boss said to me, if that thing failed, you would be finished. And I said, you don't know me. I came here with an empty suitcase. You can't take nothing from me. And he said, he thought it was a joke, but I was serious. So by the grace of God, I wrote the letter, sent it to the commissioner, and I told him I would start a program for the women. And the program was called Residential Substance Abuse Treatment Program. And I got a grant, a $3.5 million from the federal government to start the program. And fortunate for me, Donna Hendricks, Panamanian, went to school with me. Is one of the Panamanians came for an interview. So I said, you're going to have my back because I need somebody I can trust. And the program unfolded, did very successful. And within a year, I went from director for the residential program to deputy superintendent of program services back in New York City. And then I left from there and went to another prison closer in Woodburn, closer in to Albany. And something transpired at the worst maximum security prison known as Coxsackie Gladiator School. A lot of young men, testosterone, a lot of violence, a lot of, danger for staff, danger for inmates. And ironically enough, by then, apparently I built a reputation, and somebody got the bright idea to call me, tell the deputy commissioner, call Louis Marshall at Woodburn, and let him go there and try to turn that place around. And I didn't tell my wife about the danger that existed. I arrived there, and sure enough, Lord put it in my spirit, teach them. So I arrived there, and the person running the place was heading out the front door, Italian. From what I understood, she should have been fired, but he was able to retire. So now everything was on my shoulders. So the first thing I did, I don't know if you want me to go through this in detail.
Yes, details. We want to know.
Okay, the first thing I did is ask my secretary to call the district attorney of the county in Coxsackie. And he showed up, and I closed the door with him in my office, and I said to him, I thank you for coming. And the reason I wanted you to be here is because I want you to know my rules of engagement. And based on what I already heard about the place that was under investigation by the feds, the state, I said to him, you got to know that my rules of engagement is I don't fraternize. I don't engage in lascivious behavior, arbitrary and capricious behavior. I don't violate inmates' rights. 8th Amendment to the Constitution says cruel and inhuman punishment is not applicable to anyone. So therefore, if I have staff or inmate that violate the rules, policies, procedures that govern the department, I'm going to bring them before your court. And what I need for you to do is enforce the rule of law. And we don't want to show any favoritism. And I made it clear I'm not here for a popularity contest. So therefore, he was fairly young, and I think maybe no one else spoke to him in that manner, but he sat there looking very petrified. And I asked him, I said, did you get the gist of what I'm trying to tell you? And he said, yes, sir. I said, because you and I are the highest ranking people that are going to determine what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. And that's going to send a message, and people going to fall in line eventually because they realize now that checkmate game is over. And that's the way it went. So I took a lot of the people who were in Key Block for 23 hours and 1 hour recreation. These were over 200 men was under that status. 23 hours lock up, 1 hour to just do a little exercise and go back in the cell. And I spoke to every one of them individually. And I told them what I can do for them. I said, I don't want to hear the story why you're here, but I want you to know I'm here now. I will give you a time cut and while you're locked up. But once you get that time cut and you violate it, I'm sending you up on the Canadian border, and you're not going to get any visits. Your family can't afford to go up there and look for you. So think twice before you do something stupid. Well, by the grace of God, everything went very well. And in 11 months, the commissioner called me and assigned me to the assistant commissioner of New York State Prisons.
Now, during your time there, I don't know if you could give this information. Did you see any other Panamanians that were there?
At Coxsackie? No. At that time, I didn't see any, but after I found out that some of them had worked there in the past and they took off.
All the
They didn't
Panamanians
want
that
to be
work there.
there.
Well, I was referring to more so like inmates. Did you see any inmates that were from Panama there?
Oh, Panamanian inmates, uh, one or two, yeah, at Coxsackie, not too many. Because
And
Coxsackie, the age group is average 18 to 25. That's why there was so much
oh, okay,
violence. There's a lot of
okay,
young men, testosterone.
yeah, yeah. Everyone's trying to flex their muscles.
Yes, but I had a good relationship with them eventually.
And so once you came there and they started to realize what type of person you were, how did the staff really take to that? Because if they were doing certain things for a very long time, it's kind of hard to break people out of that certain mold. So once you got there, what was it? What was your? Did they give you pushback, or were they like, "Oh, okay, well, we're just gonna do what we're told"?
Well, as I always tell people in any business, every day you go to work, what you're showing people is your character. By then in my career, I already had developed a reputation. He'll smile with you, but he don't play when it comes to the work. So yes, it was predominantly white officers in a very racist town called Coxsackie. You can look it up. And but that didn't shy me away. I know there was grumbling about my appearance there, my accent, my color, and all that. But I told the heads, which is my executive team, the deputy security captains, lieutenants. I had a meeting with them and the union separately, and I told them the same thing I told the district attorney. My rules of engagement. And some of them kind of grumble and say, well, some of the things that you want to implement may upset some people. And I said the same thing. I didn't come here for a popularity contest. I said I came here to run this organization according to the rules, regulation, and policy. And if you all do the same, we're going to be able to operate effectively and consistently without too much deviation. Yes, you're going to have altercation because everybody knows prison is setting where you have very unexpected circumstance happen. You're always in crisis management. That can't be avoided because it's all human beings. But if you set the standards, and I can say this emphatically, it worked for me like a charm because they may not agree immediately, but when they realized there was not any more cutting, stabbing, staff scared to walk around. And another thing that was kind of puzzling to them is I never had an escort. And they will ask me, sir, why you walk around here? You don't want an escort. I said, I don't need an escort. Obviously, they didn't know my background. But I told them, no, I don't need an escort. Plus, people can see fear in your eyes. And they realize that this guy's not afraid of us. And I don't disrespect them. And I try to tell them, even right here in Georgia, I've had meetings with officials here. I said, I've always called inmates by the name on their name tag. I don't have to tell him he's an inmate. He knows that. We're not here to convict anyone. They're convicted. You're here for care, custody, control. And my role is to run something that is going to be stable, consistent, and give them a sense of self-worth that they will leave here with a different attitude.
So now, once you left that prison, then after that, where did you go?
I became the assistant commissioner in New York State. So I was responsible for every program services throughout the system, meaning that over 25 prisons, at some point in time, I had to visit them to see the operation of the programs such as GED, carpentry, plumbing, masonry, depending on the type of program that they had in their facility. And I'll listen to staff, I'll listen to inmates and find out some of their concerns and their needs. And since I control basically the budget for program services, I could get them certain things that they need to operate within the guidelines that is allowed. And I did that for approximately, I think almost 2.5 to 3 years. And now this is going to sound a little crazy. I called the commissioner at the time and I told him, I'm ready to go back into the prison. And he said, what? I say, yes. I say, I don't mind doing this job, writing policies and procedures, but I need to have contact with the people who are incarcerated. And he said, where you want to go? I said, close to home. Because I was traveling from Poughkeepsie, New York to Albany every morning and afternoon. So therefore now I was looking for a place closer to home. And he said to me, there's a situation brewing right now, a place called Wallkill. The name is indicative of the place, Wallkill.
Wow. Wow.
Highly racist. And he was very honest with me. He said, Marshall, you sure you want to go there? Because he can't say exactly what's going on. And I look at him with a smile and I say, I am certain. Do you want to send me there? And he
Wow.
said, okay. So I arrived there and did the same thing. I told him my rules of engagement. And there was a few people that were very uptight and upset. And what I did with them immediately, especially one of the lieutenants, I had to bring him down to size by taking away this big lavish office he had, and I put it in a nice little room, smaller than a bedroom, and put a desk there. And I said, "This is your office," effective immediately. And I think they realized I was not there to play games. They didn't smile with me for a couple of days till after a while they realized, and it's a medium security, and that I was there to conduct the responsibility. So I stayed there, and eventually the new commissioner who knew me personally, he called me and asked me if, no, he didn't ask me. He told me, he said, Marshall, I have a proposition for you. And before you answer me, I'm going to tell you I don't have a backup plan. And I said to him, we call each other on first name basis. That's how friendly he was with me. I said, Brian, what do you need? He said, I need you to take over Sing Sing. And I paused for a while and he said, let me tell you something. You see all them accolades and so you've been getting about what you've done for the agency? None of that compares with going to Sing Sing. So I told him, all right, I want to think about it. And he said, no, there's no backup plan. And I said, okay, Brian, it's going to be a short stay because I'm thinking about retiring. And he said, just say yes and I'll tell you the rest. And I said, I'll do it. And then he said, okay, that's one. Second, you are going to be the supervising superintendent of all the state prisons in New York City. That's including Staten Island. So when I end up at Sing Sing, I was still over every work release facility in New York City, whether in Queensboro, Long Island, anywhere that there was a state facility, work release, any type of prison that was state, I was over those along with running Sing Sing maximum security prison. And that's where I stayed until I retired.
Now, one of the things I will say is very admirable. That's the word. I'm sorry, is the fact that in every situation that you've encountered, of course, there has been extreme pushback and backlash, racism, dealing with murderers and serial killers and all kind of other things that you had to deal with, and you still managed to push forward throughout adversities, right? And I think this is a good lesson for a lot of us because, especially living in the States, a lot of us black people, we always are crying about racism and how we're not being treated fairly. And I see how you maneuver it. You can't really control the way other people feel about you and how they deal with situations, but you control how you deal with them. And I think that's one of the things that I noticed throughout this whole entire conversation is that the way you dealt with them, they didn't have any other choice but to respect you. So,
Right, because that's the only thing that you need, because you're not inviting me to sit at the dinner table. You're probably talking about me the worst way when you go home, but
yeah.
that's acceptable. What is not acceptable that you don't bring that behavior into the workplace. In fact, when I got to Wallkill, I put out a memo letting them know that you can't be flying no rebel flags on your trucks and state property. Checkmate, game over. You don't bring no flags on the grounds, state grounds. You can fly the flag when you drive off onto the main highway.
What flag are we talking about? The Confederate flag or the
You
American
got
flag?
that. You got it.
Okay, I got some people from from Guyana and other countries, so they don't know what I don't think they know what the Confederate flag is. But the Confederate flag is a flag that they use in the South to represent the South, but it was actually used in a negative way to represent white power, to say the least. So it's used for representation of racism. For those of you who are in the Caribbean, that's on live right now because we got somebody from Trinidad in here, we got somebody from Guyana in here, we have some people from Panama, so they might not know what the Confederate flag is. I mean, there's a whole history behind it, but that's just to sum it up in a nutshell. I want to go to some of the comments. I am says, Mr. Marshall, your family must be proud of you. You are a role model.
Thank you for that compliment. Thank you.
Mr. Camille said the military training, my good brother, is what. Let's see. The canal zone was segregated while the rest of Panama in itself was not. I like to go through the comments to keep it interactive. Merle Clark says, praise God from whom all blessings flow. Very proud of you both. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Panamanian 507 said Vietnam was a very unfair and uneven war. Let's see who else we have here. Mr. Camille says, when we are cranking off rounds in Iraq, all I cared about was could the soldier hold a rifle and shoot straight. So in other words, I guess he's saying racism didn't matter. And thank you, Mr. Camille, for your super chat. All right, so let's go through this. So now you're at Sing Sing, okay? And everyone knows, if you are from New York, that Sing Sing is one of the worst prisons in America. You have some of the why I'm trying to put this into words. You have some of the most dangerous killers there, serial killers, you name it, they're there, right? So your first day, what do you experience?
Well, let me interject something here. I know the school of thought is that it's the worst prison. That was the past history. Sing Sing is one of the oldest prisons, built 1825. Yes, they used to do waterboarding there and many other things. In fact, over 610 people, I think, were killed there in the electric chair, included Ethel Rosenberg and her husband. The two German spies were electrocuted right there in the chair that we call it Sparky. Chair is not there anymore. But yes, it have that reputation. But now, where we are right now, could I show you one or two things?
Sure.
Now, this is what Sing Sing is. All right, this is how big it is. It looked like a city. All right, this is how big it is. And at the same time, what we have there now is all these programs. We have GED, we have carpentry, plumbing, masonry. We have 2 college programs. We have computer program, although the system don't allow them to pick up signals outside the facility. It's just for training purposes. And the college program is a master's program pertaining to seminar for different religious practices. So I have to say that it's not what it used to be. And I can't show you every page, but I have the manual right here next to me pertaining to Sing Sing. And what we have in here is all the different types of workshops and carpentry and plumbing and so forth. And upon graduation, these inmates are given a certificate, and now they can look for a job when they are released. Several times I've had celebrities came there. I had Ari Belafonte there twice. Ari Belafonte was there twice for graduation because he was shocked to see these guys with obtaining college degrees in a setting like that. He said he'll never believe that if he never came there. Ice-T, the rapper, was there. I had him as one of my guests at graduation. So yes, it have a very bad reputation historically, but if you go there now, the culture has changed because when you give people hope, it changes their mindset. Not everybody going to change.
No, I don't want to go there. I don't want to go there because you said if you go there now, no, thank you.
Everybody don't change at the same time, and everybody don't want to change. And as I told the Panamanian government, if you are not providing any venue for these guys to have any hope about their life, you are not helping them when they get released. They're going to go back to what they know or what they think is best for them. You need
okay, hold on.
programs.
Pause that, because we're going to get into that because the comments is hot right now about that. Okay. Jen Williams says, I don't know if you mentioned this before, but why is it called Sing Sing?
Uh, I can't recall exactly if that was the name of, because a lot of times these names have a derivative from something having to do with either the Indians or so forth. But the name Sing Sing, I'm not certain if that's the origin based on something specifically. I can look it up. I haven't dealt with this for a long time, but yet still, um, that is the name that they reverted back to.
It says Sing Sing's name comes from the Indian phrase sin sink, which means stone on stone.
That's what I thought it was, derivative of an
Yes.
Indian name, but I didn't want to assume. Yeah, it's an
It says
Indian name.
in 1901, 3 years after Edison introduced the electric chair at Sing Sing, the town changed its name to Osing.
Ossining.
Yes.
Ossining.
So people wouldn't confuse it with the jail.
Hmm?
So,
Stone and stone.
Yes, you just look it up.
so that is where the name came
Thank you.
from, Jen. Osing, New York. Thank you, Rick. Thank you for that information. It's called. It's called cause it's Osing. Okay, I can't even pronounce it. Okay, yeah, you guys see on the
Ossining.
screen. Yes.
Ossining, New York.
Thank you. All right. So you were able to create. So This actually was going to be one of my questions, but you already kind of answered it. I was going to ask you if the reason why there's so much repeat offenders. Why am I speaking another language right now? Okay, is it because they don't give these? There's not enough programs because I feel like a lot of times with inmates, once they're released into the real world, there's nothing really to help them get familiar with the real world. They don't have the education. They don't because a lot of times they're in jail for a very long time. So they don't have, like you said, a sense of hope for anything. And so I guess that's where you come in. And how could we apply that to Panama? Because Panama jail is no joke. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. Okay? So how could we use your experience to change some of the things that's happening right now in Panama?
Well, let me answer two things. One, a lot of the programs that are at Sing Sing right now, I didn't start them. I don't want to take the credit for that. Mm-hmm. When I arrived, my predecessor, who became the commissioner, he had these programs instituted at that time. So all I did is expand them and improve them to the best way I know how. Mm-hmm. And they work in the context that humanity is such that when we allow people to feel that they are capable, because not everybody have confidence in self. That's why even though the football or basketball player is the one executing, you still have a coach, you have a mentor, because we need somebody who says, yes, you can. Like Obama used to say, yes, we can. And when you motivate people sincerely now, I'm not talking about arbitrary, sincerely, you can get them to a point where they start believing that, yes, I can do this. And then you reward them by, as I said, we give them a certificate, which is qualified by the state. And one of the things that I used to say to them, when you leave here and you go for a job, before they investigate, you tell them the truth. Say, listen, I made a mistake. I was locked up, but I learned my lesson. I invested my time. I learned this trade. I only need for you to give me a chance. That was my spiel to them. I spoke to every inmate who arrived at Sing Sing. I had to set aside a day for that Friday evening. I took my entire executive team, first deputy, captain, deputy security program services, anyone who had a major title, and I let the inmates see exactly who are the people running this place. Mm-hmm. And I will do what I call a wrap-up. I let them go first, and then I do the wrap-up. Well, one of the advantages I have is that I was the only black one on the team. So I could speak from a different view, and I will come down a little bit to their level and I'll say, checkmate, your game is over. Your mind is still free, but your body is incarcerated. Meaning we got two libraries, public library, and we have a what is called a general library and a law library. And if you ever find a book that you're interested in and it's not here, I will buy the book and bring it for you. So
Wow.
I was winning them from day one and telling them at the same time, don't nickel and dime while you're here because this is an adult prison. This is not the division of youth. So you want to be treated like a man, act like a man. And at
Correct.
Sing Sing, you cannot have your pants halfway down. Checkmate, game over, you're going back into your cell for the rest of the day. So with this in mind, you start to let people realize that there is order, there's discipline, there's purpose, there's objective, and they're inclusive. You don't separate yourself. And I used to tell the staff, the reason why nobody walk around with me, one, I'm not afraid, and two, they don't feel intimidated by me because I don't do anything condescending. They are afraid of you because when I leave you at night, only you know what goes on here, and you don't want to talk about it because you have to lie to me. So let's leave that alone. And not everybody's engaged in these behaviors. You have one or two officers, but the majority, I have to say 99.9% of the officers were excellent. I could rely on them. I could call them anytime, even though I'm not their immediate supervisor. But we had a relationship. And to this day, a lot of them are on my page on Facebook. I'm probably watching right now. We still in touch. That's the kind of camaraderie that we share. And one thing that I forget to mention, while I was doing this career, I was also the adjunct professor. And let me make sure I make it clear. I got permission from the government. I was teaching at night at Marist College in upstate. I was teaching sometime at Mercy College, York College. And upon retirement, I came down here to Georgia and started teaching for Strayer University.
Wow. Okay, so Fernando Dunbar said, "We need someone like you with your ethics in Panama government. I pray for my country all the time." And that brings me to an interview that I saw with you on the news here in Panama, where you were talking about the criminal justice system here in Panama, and not that you wanted to change anything, but to add, to help, right? And I know we had a private conversation, but we didn't get into it about the program or something that you're working on in regards to this, I'm going to assume. Do you want to share? Because everyone is like in the comments talking about, look, we have someone saying, is the Panamanian government even interested in improving the jail system?
You want me to answer that?
Yes.
I'm going to take a step back. I have made several trips to Panama, and sometimes my friends will say to me, I'm wasting my time. But I have a philosophy that says, whatever I have within me, I better leave it all here because you can't take it with you. So therefore, I've been on the radio in Panama more than once when there was a scandal with 4 inmates were killed at a prison in Panama. And they interviewed me and I said to them, and I always do this very cautiously because one thing is to teach somebody versus indicting somebody. So I always try to make my language sound like I'm trying to teach you, I'm not indicting you. You know what wrong you did. And I told them that those kids died because there was no policies and procedures. When the young men started misbehaving, what is the next step? Do you, in your rule book, do you have a rule book that says you call the sergeant and let him give you direction? Or you just do what you think you want to do because your life is out there on the line? So I try to help them realize you have to write up guidelines. I don't know if you saw on the TV, I raised up the book, the rule book, and the rule book has my name on the cover. And I said it emphatically. That didn't mean that I wrote it. It means that we come together and we try to develop rules and regulations to have guidelines to operate according to a procedure that I can predict what you should or should not do in a given circumstance. Now, I've been in the prisons in Panama. Some people think I'm a little crazy for doing that. I went there and spent the entire day at Renacer in Colon. And I, not only me, but a group of us from the organization that I'm part of, Christ Fellowship Feeding Center in Cologne, which I told you we have a feeding center in 3rd Street for the last 18 years. We took 68 bags of food only for the Christian inmates because you can't feed 1,800 inmates. I can't do that. And we had a little church service with them. And you heard when I was interviewed on TV, I try not to disrespect them. I said, I wouldn't even leave a dog there overnight. The place was nasty. Exactly. It was filthy. Yeah. But when I went back now, this last time when they asked me to do the interview, I was trying to tell them about corrective measures I brought material. Some of them is sitting right next to me right now. I presented them with these things. I don't know everything, but I've helped to turn around a lot of the facilities in New York State. They did an article in me in the newspaper in Panama about panameño que trajo educación a las reas en América. So now you don't mind publishing all of that, but when it comes time to sit down and discuss the ability to make the changes, unfortunately, to answer someone's question that they asked a little while ago, are they receptive? I have to tell you sincerely, I don't think most of them are receptive. I met with one governor in Panama. I don't want to, well, he's not the governor anymore, the governor in Colon at that time. And I told the governor things that he could do to cut down on the illegality that goes on in the prison. I say, if you want to get these guys to stop doing these illegal activities along with the officers, and I told him about setting up the 2 lie detector machine, and I'm not going to lie to you, the governor at that time said to me, coño, si hacemos eso, vamos a perder el 65% de los empleados. Out of his mouth, he said, if we do that, we will lose 65% of the employees. Well, I got to tell you, I had a rush of blood that I was getting angry, and I had to calm myself down and say, this is not your fight. He insulted the whole idea of change by turning it into a joke and saying how much employees they will lose if they institute the practice that I am asking him to do. I left him and I went down the street and met with the director of prison, sat down with him in the prison. And I saw a few things that I don't want to repeat on the air, but they were not legal things. And this is people that are in charge engaging in these behaviors. So unfortunately, the idea of change, they're not receptive for the most part right now. I was there for the inauguration. I sit down, the alcalde, they invited me to Panama. I appreciate it. They paid my expense, but I'm not about that. You can't sugarcoat my lifestyle. There's no room for that. I went there and I gave them information how to change certain things, including how to solve the flooding in Colon with the when it rains. I gave them the drawings. I didn't put my name on it. I handed to Alcalde Alex Lee. And I don't, some things about me, I don't really care if you know that I said it because it's the truth. Because I'm hurt about the fact that he did nothing. I handed him everything at the hotel where we were. And I said, si tú implementa esto va a ayudar cuando llueve demasiado en Colón. And I got all my information by doing a research about the type of lines that they run in Europe, not to flood the streets. And he did nothing till this day.
One of the things that annoy me to say is that they always present Cologne in this way that they're animals, and I'm telling you this because I see it all the time, especially when I'm on Instagram and I'm looking at different posts, and the minute something happens in Cologne, they're posting it, and in the comment section, you have people saying, por eso ellos viven como viven, or they just say all these mean things, when in reality the government isn't doing anything really to help that province. It's one of the most underrated provinces in Panama, and they're the forgotten people, unfortunately, and it's from every way of life. Do you think that you will see any change in the future near, or do you feel like this is just something that is just embedded in the culture?
Well, I was born an optimist, and I think when you're poor, you better be an optimist, otherwise you'll be depressed at an early age. So in my optimism, I know that Cologne can change beyond a shadow of a doubt. But I have heard those exact comments that you just described. And I have said to people, it's easy for you to sit back in your comfort zone and pass judgment on people that you don't understand that they have been what I call systematic deprivation. You take away jobs, you take away basically the basic necessities, light, water. I've been in Cologne and seen the sewage come up right in the street where I'm standing. So when you take away those basic things from people and take away their hope of changes, I'm not saying it's correct, But some people are going to do something. They're not going to go get in a corner and cry all night and drop dead. They're going to resort to behavior that they probably would have never engaged in if there was doors open that they could walk through and at least try to learn a trade or do something constructive. But when you take away all the options, and something that I've talked to people in government about, you can't say that you're not depriving Cologne. When I stand there in the morning and see the buses line up coming from Panama to work at the free zone, how comes you need employees from Panama City to get on a bus and travel to the free zone, and the guy across the street live right in front of the free zone and you can't hire him? The answer is always, oh, they don't want to work. Now, we can always say the condescending things about people when we are sitting in our comfort zone. And it disturbs me, and I've seen people written some of the things that you have said just now, described, and that was my response to them. You don't know what systematic deprivation is. We experience it in America in different ways. The only thing is America has so many safety nets that you can be upset, and at the end of the month, you may get a check to pacify you. We don't have that system in Panama. There's no pacification. So therefore, yes, Cologne can change working with the people. I'm trying to get in touch with Cheng, the head of the Chamber of Commerce in Cologne, and I'll be there in December. And I don't know if you mind if I mention about the project that we're working on.
I want you to actually.
Okay. This is a project that 4 of us are working on. Dr. Enrique Carter, Dr. Reynaldo Austin, and Zuleika de Herbert. She's in Panama, and you can see some of the characters I'm talking about here. And this is Carter, and we have Reynaldo Austin over here. Ooh, this side, yeah. And let me see here. Okay, you have Zuleika, and last but not least, myself. And we started this organization specifically to try to encourage Panama to build a museum dedicated to the diggers of the Panama Canal. Panama gets over $2.6 billion with a B every year for that canal. And we don't have a decent venue to demonstrate who are the people that made this possible. I know we have the Museo Antillanos. It's in a building that was built 1909 to 1910. It was a church. I did my homework and I did a research in the building, and it's not going to withstand the length of time. When we pass on, that building is going to be crumbling. It's a wood building. It's not cement. It's not brick. So it's common sense. That building will be gone, and the artifacts will be in boxes stored away. There'll be no motivation to continue. So we are trying, hopefully, that they will build. This is a thing called a libretto, this booklet that I put together, a museum looking like that, only 2 corners, and then the rest is glass that you can see from outside. And in the museum, we hope to have a Centro de Video Digital, a Museo Galería de Arte for artwork, and it goes on. We got quite a few things in there. This is a conference room that we want to put in the museo. This is like very much like a library. This is a room a store where they sell artifacts. All of this we hope that we can get accomplished in December as far as getting the plan started. And in the booklet, in case anybody don't know, I made sure that we have a visual of the different countries in the West Indies that participated in the building of the Panama Canal.
Can you name them, because we can't see? What countries do you have listed?
Okay, you have Martinique, Guadalupe, Jamaica, Curacao, St. Lucia, Grenada, Barbados, Trinidad, St. Kitts, St. Vincent, Guyana Inglesa, and Isla Fortuna, and I mentioned Trinidad already and St. Kitts.
Yes.
And
Yes.
there may be some others that participated, and forgive me if I didn't get every area specifically, but I have to go with the research, and that's the only tool that I have to work with. And I can't just go with what people say or think or feel, because then that become shallow conversation.
Right.
And the one thing that is very important, if anybody's asking themselves why the diggers deserve this recognition, well, let me just give you a little tidbit. The suffering that these people went through since 1904, because 1903 was the independence. Hiring these people started in 1904. The suffering that they went through up to 1914. If you step back, and I can't get into all the details, but at the end of the day, over 6,000 men died building that canal. That's on record. It's probably more than that. However, out of the 6,000, 4,000 were West Indian. So that answers the question why there should be a museum dedicated to them. Without them, the project would not have been completed. They tried to
Absolutely.
get the Gallegos and some people from Europe when the West Indian was getting ready to go on strike, and they brought these gauchos and south of Panama. I have pictures of them, and they were not doing well because the terrain, the Anopheles mosquito, the climate. These people come from Europe. This was suffrage for them. So they realized quickly, we better hold on to these black men because they are the more enduring that can handle this climate to get this job done. So it's not what I think. Everything I just said to you is documented. And I think one of the worst period that nobody talks about is 1912, when they started, we're getting close to finishing the canal, and they started handling a lot of the West Indians who end up handicapped, broken arm, broken leg, because you're trying to tear down a mountain and you use an explosive. So when there's an explosion unexpectedly and people die, yes, they're buried right there, probably in Hong Kong or wherever. You're not going to look for no body parts. Okay?
Wow.
So therefore, there were so many amputees in Panama. For the first time, I got a chance to get a glimpse of a record, and it was done a research by a professor at Florida University, which is kind of embarrassing. This is somebody from another country doing the research. And when she mentioned it in a discourse that I attended on a Zoom, I was shocked the amount of men that lost limbs. And many of them, once they lost their limbs, there were no use to the government anymore in Panama as far as the work. So therefore, what they will do is make them an offer, $100, and send you back to your country.
What?
In some cases, not all of them, in some cases. Dearly departed. These are things that people don't know. And I'm not casting disparaging remarks on those of us who enjoy having the party and the fiesta and all this. But the more that I learn, the more I realize that we have divorced ourselves from the big picture. Every major event that we celebrating should have some banner. Thank God my good friend did it last 2 years in the parade, a banner of the diggers of the Panama Canal. How can you celebrate 1903 and dismiss your people who died to make it possible for a country to make 2.6 billion and not even sharing it with the people, because Panama population is only 4 million. That's less than New York City.
It's so funny that you bring that up, because today actually I was supposed to go, but I got caught up at work. Jen, who's in here, she's actually a teacher. She's in the I don't know if she's still in here, and her husband, they're both teachers, and I had them both on the channel earlier on, and they were part of the group of teachers that proposed to teach Afro-Panamanian culture in schools, and it got approved. Okay, so they had a meeting today for the curriculum. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to go, but it has been approved. So hopefully, this information will be taught in the school as well. Now, one of the things I did want to ask you is why do you feel that they always dismiss that part of history? Do you think because they want to keep it that whole Spanish, Colombian look of it all? Because it just seems like anything that has to do with Black culture or Afro-Panamanian culture always gets dismissed.
Well, that's not unusual throughout the world. And I don't want to get into the historical perspective from the great dynasties and the Cushitic period in Africa. What happens is Europe, very long ago, decided to minimize our existence as far as our humanity and our capability. So it was always looked at us as a subservient person. So when Panama acted the same way, I am not surprised at all, because what they're trying to say is that bueno, este el canal de Panama, this is Panama Canal. They don't want to complete the sentence by saying built by West Indians. Even the railroad that was built before 1800s, you will see more information saying the Chinese built the railroad. I can tell you that's a misnomer. That's not true. The Chinese arrived in 1853. The railroad was completed in 1855, but the construction began in 1850. There was a whole bunch of West Indians working on it, and some of the costeños, as we call Comecoco. So a lot of black people were working on this, but you don't see that nowhere historically. And I give ourselves the responsibility. We are responsible to bring this to the light. Don't expect anybody to take your banner and wave it for you. It's not going to work like that. The victor goes the spoil. What that means is whoever conquer you, going to treat you like you're subservient to them. So therefore, the only way you're going to get your other descendants to recognize what you've been through is doing what you are doing right now. I commend you for what you're doing. You and Dr. Barros, there's about 5 people that have the International Grapevine, my friend in Florida, that provides these forums where we can interact and communicate and share information that is pertinent and germane to who we are. Because we are probably the most confused people sometimes, and I say that across the board, whether Panamanian or Afro-American. Why we are always sounding like we're not sure who we are, and everybody else can accentuate. I used to march in the Puerto Rican Day Parade, and they say they are Puerto Rican, even though they're under the United States. Why we don't address our role in Panama as descendants of Afro-Antillanos, and we are waving everybody's flag, celebrating everybody's activity, and that's a good thing. But are we waiting for somebody to stand up and clap for us? It's not going to happen. That's not the way life is designed when it comes to the separation of ethnicity, culture, and race. Sadly enough, that's part of our reality. We have to take our own banner and march with it.
Now, how do you think? Because honestly speaking, the younger generation, I don't, and especially the ones that were born in America. So you have Afro-Panamanian, Panamanian Americans. That's the proper words, right? Your children and your children's children. Because for me, one of the things that I realized growing up is that my parents, I would hear stories, but they never really embedded that into me. It wasn't until I got older. I did dance típico. I was involved in Panamanian culture in that sense, but the history of it all, they didn't really go into the history of Panamanian culture and how much of a factor that we played in Panamanian culture, right? And so it's so important as parents, okay, and the older generation to share this information with the younger generation, because the reality of the situation is we're not going to live forever. And the only way that we can keep this information alive is if we pass the information on to the next person, to the next generation, to keep it pushing. And one of the things that I find very difficult, especially here in Panama, is the older generation don't want to let the younger generation in, right? What can we do to bridge that gap?
Well, again, when we take the initiative to come together, which is not easy, and I respect people's decision, whichever way they want to go with life, but when we put out the information for coming together with a purpose, we have to clearly outline what is the purpose. A friend of mine and I, Mauricio Brewster, we had 2 nonprofit functions right here in Atlanta. And a friend of mine took the initiative to make posters, large posters of West Indian working on the canal, because I wanted one night to be dedicated to the diggers of the Panama Canal. What was interesting is I was allowed to post these large posters throughout the hotel. You know what happened? All those whites staying at the hotel became curious, began asking questions. Some of them were at the door when we collected the tickets for the dance that night. They were drawn to us because they saw something that captivated them, but it took us to present it.
Correct.
That's what has to be the first step. We have to collectively wait. We already proved Etnia Negra, May 30. We already proved the party, the parade in Brooklyn. And I know somebody may say, well, you were the Grand Marshal one year. Well, I will be the first to admit, even on this forum, that I was not paying attention at that time, that we were not including the diggers. But once my understanding was clear, I called other people and said, hey, why we haven't had any function dedicated to the diggers? I call the names. Kike Rollo, the head of the Panamanian reunion. Hey, one of the nights of the dance, let's dedicate it to the diggers. And they're hearing me now, probably. It's not too late to do it. When you have that dedication to the diggers, that would be my age group attending that kind of function. Now they have something to tell the younger people what transpired there that pertains to them. You have to carry this thing in a way that it's meaningful to you before you can expect anybody else to grasp it and care about it.
Correct. Okay, we have a comment from Daryl Galt. He is actually, I have to shout out Daryl because Daryl is one of my supporters. He's in every single live, okay? And he was the one that left the first comment even before we even went live. Okay, I think I read that to you earlier. But Daryl says the diggers and their children had to take a test for Spanish to get Panamanian citizenship.
I am not certain that this occurred in every instance because there was two school of thought. One was that all of those West Indians should have been sent back home after 1914. The United States refused to go along with that principle. And one of the fear was that they were intermingling with the Panamanian women and, I guess married in farming family because at least they're working. So it was easier for them probably to get a relationship than a Spanish man that don't have any job. So I'm just facts of life. So therefore, I'm not getting into whether there was love or not love, but I did hear that at some point that occurred what Galt just mentioned about having to take a test. I don't know the particulars of it, so I can't elaborate on it because I'm not certain all of the particulars. I know there was an attempt to do everything to dissuade them from staying in the country.
Okay, I'm going through the comments now because they love, my subscribers love to comment and I love to read their comments because some of us have some very important points. Alexis S. said, prisons are a business. How do you feel about that comment?
Well,
as working in the prison system?
Okay, when you make a blanket statement, it means that you're lacking some of the fundamentals to the subject. And what is missing here is if somebody kills your neighbor, would you like him to come home and just lay back next to you as a neighbor? Or do you want to see some action taken to remove him from society for violating the norms, rules, and regulation in the society? I'm not saying everybody is sentenced equally. I am very aware of some of the discrepancies. But the prison system is an institution that we wish that never existed. But human beings are what we are. Some of us not going to adhere to the rules and regulation. Some of us going to violate other people's rights. And when that happens, there have to be a place that takes you out of society because you don't know to conform to society. And hopefully you will change based on remorse or somebody giving you some information or indication that you can do better, or you just simply stay there until you get released and come back out and become a repeat offender. But the part about it as a business, yes, there's also that part of it, which is you have privatization of prison. And those private prisons do not exist in New York State, because when I was there, along with the commissioner, we listened to them and told them, no, we don't need that. I was interviewed and asked before I retired, about working with GEO. And they got into a scandal. And again, your reputation follow you. the person that was advocating for me to run the facility realized that based on the information that came out, and the judge ended up getting 14 years in prison in Pennsylvania, they know I was never going to be part of that mess. So yes, in that regards, it is a business, but that's not an excuse to say that they're trying to put you in prison because they're trying to make money. A lot of people's behavior is indicative of their action, and consequence come. You can do what you want in many cases, but you don't determine consequences. So I don't agree with that, that solely it's a business, because Rikers Island have close to 8,000 people, I think. New York State had close to 65,000, right now about 55,000. I don't think you will want some of those guys running around in your neighborhood or even close to your daughters or son, because I know some of them by name. I walked the galleys with them, and I can tell you what, they will slit your throat and lose no sleep. So we got to be thankful that there is an institution that can hold these people accountable for their behavior and not let them stay free, and that's be a reward. And we've seen it happening more often when even law enforcement people don't get treated equally for their demeanors or misbehaviors. I spoke down at City Hall in the Rotunda, and I told them straight up, I don't know favorites. And I told the mayor and everybody right there sitting there, I says, we are representing the law. So in violating the law, you can't represent something that you don't stand for.
I like to have these type of conversations because a lot of times we are the outsiders looking in, and it's easy for us to pass judgment based on what we see from the outside looking in. So to have someone like you that actually was in the system and know the system, it's good to hear your input and your experience so that hopefully we all can get a better understanding on what really is transpiring. Fernando Dunbar says, in Panama, there's no order and care because those that are elected to make the change doesn't care about nothing or no one but themselves. I hope somebody in the government can hear your concerns and do something about it, and maybe hopefully they'll change the perspective and build more trust in the people. We'll pray for it. Okay? Daryl Galt says, what are the data points for crime for current inmate population? Example, drugs, theft, assault, and murder.
I don't know exactly what he referred to as data point, but I can tell you in the big picture, every year, taking New York State, that's where I work, averagely 9,000 inmates are paroled annually. Recidivist rate varies, but it's high. I can say that. Now, I've been retired since 2008. Has it improved? I don't know. But I'm just giving you the overall understanding that that percentage amount of people are released from the system, and more than half return to the system. And again, you have to know all the variables. And the variables mean who gets the longest sentence based on what courts are sentencing them, based on their ethnicity, because I can tell you personally, I've read hundreds of folders, and yes, it is true that certain courthouses that you go in any state and you're Black, you may get more years than somebody else that, let's say his family can make a few phone calls. And guess what? That happens in Panama also. That's a wake-up call. Don't think this is all about, in America, the injustice. In Panama, they make the phone call also, because if that wasn't possible, we know a few celebrities in Panama who should have been in jail a long time ago.
Absolutely. Alexis S. says, Cologne will be gentrified. The best beaches in the province. They claim DC was horrible, crime-ridden for years. Now look, you cannot rent there as a native. And I also got to shout out Alexis also, because Alexis is one of my VIP subscribers. And Alexis is always donating to the channel. And I just want to let you know that I appreciate you. You are amazing, and your donations help me to keep this channel going. So thank you so much, Alexis.
I believe that's a true statement. exactly verbatim what she wrote. One of the very subversive things that seems to be happening is gentrification to try to move most people out of Cologne, the city. Another um, preparation that I thought I could share with the alcalde. I have paperwork right here based on how Dubai got started, because you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You only have to look at something similar to see how you can build where you are. But I don't know if the interest is there because of exactly what she said. Uh, it looks like very subversive. This gentrification is going to be taking place. And what happened in DC, you're correct. I've been there many times. And right now, if you try to buy a house there, it will cost you a whole lot of money. The same place that was so much crime, uh, now today is become prime real estate.
That's just like downtown Brooklyn, Williamsburg. Williamsburg was drug infested. Nobody wanted to
Perfect
live in
example.
Bed-Stuy was another drug infested place that nobody wanted to live in. What they call now Park Slope also was also drug ridden. So it's happening really all over.
It's true.
T. Light Go said the problem in Panama and Cologne is not the system but moral. Governors don't even care about God but just money. You don't have to answer that. I'm just reading the comments. And Guyanese Brown Sugar said, like the video peeps to spread the word. Yes, liking the video helps to spread the video to other people. I think that what Mr. Marshall is sharing is very important information, and a lot of people could do a lot with this information. So, guys, before you leave this live, there's a lot of you guys in here right now. Make sure you hit the like button. There's no reason why I shouldn't have 41 likes right now because I'm seeing how many people is in the live. So please make sure you hit the like button. And then if you are watching this on the replay, please comment and please like and share the video. Okay? Fernando Dunbar says, there's a lot of comments coming in for you. It's a problem because most Pan American rather dismiss than face and teach. And okay, I'm gonna just say this. In my opinion, I don't think you have to have a calling and a love for history, right? Not everyone is into history. Not everyone has that passion of wanting to know information. I just happen to be born with that gift of always wanting to know and asking questions.
Yes.
My parents, they just came to America just to have a better life. I don't even think my parents really thought that they would ever go back to Panama. That was not part of their what is it? I don't think that they ever thought that they would ever come back to Panama. So they didn't really think to teach us anything. Whatever I did was because of the things that I wanted to do. I grew up around other Panamanian people, other children that were Pan American or they were Panamanian that came to live in the States because the Panamanian community in Brooklyn was very, very small. So everyone really knew each other. And then when you're in this one sweet 16 and you're in this one sweet 16 and then you start experiencing the culture when this one is having a sweet 15 and they're dancing típico and then you find that love for it. It was never introduced to me specifically through my parents. It was introduced to me by other people in the community. So I don't think that it's the point of they rather dismiss than face and teach. I just think that in the case of my parents, they just didn't know. And they just didn't have that passion to teach history. I just was born with that. Would you say that's the same? Because you have kids that's around my daughters that they're a little older than me, but we're around the same age. How would you feel, or what do you think about them not really having that, not having the culture, but not really wanting to fight the fight? Or not really interested, or if they are interested in fighting the fight?
That's for me?
Yes.
Okay. Most of the behavior that we have derives from circumstances that either challenges us or that we have a need to learn those behaviors for her survival, for her interest or motivation. And in the case of rather dismiss, I don't think is exactly that they want to dismiss anything that deals with Panama, but many of us came here, and you describe it very well, because I was around your parents when they were making the decision, because I can tell you about going back. Many of us came here, and our primary goal was to try to make a better life for ourselves. And we left it right there. Once we made this supposedly better life, we became content, comfortable, accommodating, and embrace each other. And we left it right up to that point. We circled the wagons without looking back. At least I feel that that was part of my own problem. And we didn't take an interest in building some fundamental things that say, let me go back and try to help out this way or that way. In my case and others like yourself, we started this comedor. I'm not taking the credit. Sandy Sargent started it 18 years ago. She called me from Virginia, where she's living, and said, the Lord put this in my spirit. And I said to her, make all the plans, tell me what you want me to do, and I will be there to support you. And that continued till this day. Till this day, we are supporting it financially and doing what we need to do. That's a small corner of the problem, because we need to share this with our children in Panama, because I call it our children, that those colonenses don't feel so left out and hopeless because they don't have means. So we doing a small portion. Now, those who went back to Panama, myself and others have spoken to some of them, and they may be on the chat, and I hope they're listening. Some of us suggested to them to take the hall in 11.5 Street in Rio Bajo, the La Jal. There's some dividers I'm put in there. Raise some money to get some laptops and start teaching the kids in 11.5, 11th Street, Parque, all those black kids English.
Eggs. Oh my God. I don't.
So without calling names, some of them were like, whoa, man, you think I retired to come back here and start working? You see, that's a selfish statement. You'd rather sit on a chair or a stool or do nothing and nickel and dime. Let me don't go too deep on that, because I know the whole game, because I grew up with a lot of these people. They know me personally. Rather than even trying to do something that's going to bring up some of these young people, just the way others in Panama try was to encourage us when we were going astray, including yours truly. Now you saying you want to go fold your hands, sit back, and wait till thy kingdom come, because you didn't retire to come back to Panama and do any work. And I'm telling you something that is going to give you satisfaction, gratification. You contributed to somebody else's life. That's the kind of thing need to be done in Panama with some of my brothers. And you know, I know all of you, especially my crowd out at Johnny B. If we take a little time out, hey, don't worry, sweetheart. They know me. Fear is not in my game. I speak truth. If some of us will do some of the things, not expensive things, simple things, it is amazing how we can transform other people's lives.
Yes. And my friend Jen Williams, the one I was telling you about, the teacher that I was telling you about, she is on the chat and she's loving this right now. I love this for her. I'm so happy to have you on here so I can share you with my Panama peeps, my peoples from Panama, my friends from Panama. Jen says, hats off to you. Hats off, my man. Okay. Let's get back to the comments. Okay, Daryl Galt says, my grandfather, Belleville Holness, never got Panamanian citizenship. He kept his Jamaican citizenship. Okay. And Donna says, many of our parents went to the States in the 60s and 70s wanted to assimilate into the culture, but remember, Carlos Russell founded Black Solidarity Day in 1969.
That is true.
And then I am says, this is a question for you, Mr. Marshall. Did you ever feel alone being a minority in your job, especially in a white-dominated work setting? How did you manage keeping your professionalism?
Well, I had one advantage. When I started that career, I had become a born-again Christian. I'm not preaching to anyone. You ask me the question, I'm going to tell you my truth. And becoming a born again Christian, a lot of revelation came to me. And one of them was, as long as I'm walking with the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, I got the crowd on my side.
And I seen that on one of your Facebook pictures. It was you when you were younger in the army, and you had a big old gun next to you, and you said, "God never left my side." So I think that was admirable. Fernando Dunbar said, "I'm sorry, I don't mean to disrespect or target." No, 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 no. I don't want anyone to feel that when you. This is a safe
Nah.
space. This is a safe space, guys. I don't want anyone to feel like you are disrespecting anyone. You are entitled to your own opinions.
Yes.
You know, this is a conversation, and within conversations, we get to understand each other. We also get to hear other people's perspective, even though, or even if you don't agree with what the person is saying, it's okay to disagree. This is a safe space.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes, it is.
Let's see. There's so many comments. Like, it's so many comments in here, and I'm trying to get through all of them. Delta Blue said, "I could tell that he knew God." And so, do you want to tell people about your Facebook, your ministry that you do on Facebook? Because I think it's important.
Of course, without him, I'm nothing. Anyway, I could give you the short outline of my testimony. I got saved on Church Avenue in Brooklyn, hours in the night, heading to my partying life, 1983. I asked the Lord, I said, if you are real, change my life. I made a U-turn, went home. My wife said, "Oh, you home already?" And checkmate, game over. That was a turning point. So, yes. Now, over the years, that doesn't mean that everything has been perfect. You're going to have your peaks and valleys because that come with living. If you don't want that, you have to leave this earth. As long as you're here, you're going to have some trials and tribulation. But the beautiful thing that I've found is when you know the author and finish of your faith, you can always reflect and say, I can't do this. I need you to give me favor. First of all, make sure that you're on the right footing before you ask for anything. People have a tendency of always asking rather than starting out by saying, if I have done anything wrong, if I've offended anyone, I ask for forgiveness. Then you can ask for what you want after. However, that has been my walk, and on my page, as you asked me, on my page, I have two things that I do. One is called Walking Through the Bible. I think I'm getting ready to do Abaka. And the next one is Prayer for My Brothers and Sisters. I write both of them in the evening around this time. I haven't done it today, but that's okay. This is equally important in terms of what we're doing right this minute. And that's what I do. And I put out a lot of information pertaining to the scriptures. What I learned, I share. And we all should be doing the same thing, constantly having an appetite to learn and to share with others. Not everybody going to be interested because the Bible tells you, he that have ears, let him hear. And it's so radical that the Bible even says, if the man don't want to hear, dust off your feet and leave that house. Mm-hmm. When you read the scriptures like that, it makes open your eyes like, wow, I know a few people that they don't want to hear. So therefore, you don't change anybody. All you do is leave the word with them. And the Bible said the Holy Spirit does not draw them, they will not come. So no preacher, teacher, none of us can get somebody saved. Mm-hmm. That's scriptural, not what Louis Marshall said. That's in the Bible. We can't save anybody. We only can bring the word forth, and then it says the Holy Spirit draw them.
I think that this was an amazing, amazing conversation. There's people still coming in, but guys, I'm sorry, you're going to have to catch the replay. Okay. This was such an amazing conversation. I think one of the takeaways, especially for the younger people that are in the live, that follow me, that's watching on the replay. I know, let me hold on. Somebody wants to know, Mr. Marshall, I hope to see you again on VGIRLTV. Wait, what's your Facebook? What's your Facebook page? That's what they're asking.
Yeah, Louis Marshall.
There you go. His Facebook is Louis Marshall, guys.
That's my name right there. Once you enter on Facebook and ask to be my friend, make sure there's only one criteria that I require from people. If you have any vulgarity, any things that are insulting. You know, I don't want to be part of that media. I'm not telling you what you should do. I'm only saying I will delete the person in a heartbeat because I don't use profanity, vulgarity, and these things for a reason. And once when it did happen, I told the person I can't go back there. I emptied that trash long time ago. So don't try to take me back to that trash. So the only thing I require is to be ethical and realize that we have to respect each other. That's all.
I think you should make a separate page off your main page, right? So you have your regular page, but then there's another, like a fan page where you can give your scriptures and then people could follow you. But I'm going to tell your wife to do it. So
she's in another room listening to you.
I'm gonna tell her to do it for you. But yeah, so then that way people can follow you without you having to see what they post. So I think you should do that. Habla español entonces, pero oye, ustedes bien listos, ¿cómo es posible que ustedes van a venir en un canal que hablamos inglés y van a demandar que nosotros hablamos español? No. Anyway.
Tell her she can get the translation.
Yeah, you can. Closed captioning. So what I was saying was, I think one of the important takeaways, even with me, right, is that we have to go back and teach. So what is it? You teach one to what you each one to teach one.
Teach one.
That saying, yes. Teach one. Okay. So it's super important for us to teach, even if it's one person. Even if it's one person. My friend Delano Dubison has an amazing program who I'm working with him actually to donate the gifts to the kids that's in his foundation. If you guys follow him on Instagram, he always posts up the kids and what he's doing with the kids. The kids are so beautiful. I love them. Each one to teach one. Thank you, Rick B. And I think he is doing a lot of amazing things for the city for Cologne. If you guys haven't had a chance to see that interview, please watch it. It has so much information. And I spoke to Delano today, and I told him that you were going to be a guest on my show. And I told him that you spoke highly of him, and he told me that you was one of his mentors. And that he loves the work that you're doing. And it meant so much to him that you had so much kind things to say about him and the interview. So I had to share that information with you.
Yes, he was very good.
Let me just add this back on the stream again, guys. If you are in Panama and you want to donate to the toy drive, again, the receipts, I leave the receipts of everything that I purchased in the community tab on my YouTube channel so you guys can check it out. If you are in Panama, you can buy a gift and leave it at one of our stores. If you are in the States, the GoFundMe link will be left or if you're anywhere in the world and you want to donate, doesn't necessarily have to be in the States, you can leave a donation with the GoFundMe link. No donation is too small. It could even be $1. It doesn't matter because every little thing adds up. Okay, so I'm hoping to get this finalized by the 1st of December. I have already purchased some gifts and I put the pictures of the gifts in the community tab. I was able to buy some black and brown dolls for some girls. They're the cutest things ever. And I ended up bringing it back with me to the States. So I'm going to end this, okay? I want to say thank you so much, Mr. Marshall, for joining me on my platform. I appreciate it so much. You have you've provided a wealth of information, and just thank you.
I thank you so much for inviting me. You're wonderful. And you know, we're like family, distant family. We haven't seen each other for a long time, but you know what is important? That when we do see each other, we still got the love.
Yes. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in to my channel, my canal de YouTube. I appreciate you guys so much for always being consistent with your donations and your support. Don't forget to make sure you like this before you leave. Make sure you are sharing this video so that we can continue to share the word for everyone else. You guys have been awesome. I love you guys. If you haven't had a chance, go to VGIRLTV.com and sign up for the mailing list because YouTube, for some reason, is not sending out when I go live. So I would like to send out that information to you so you can go directly to my YouTube link, okay? Thank you guys so much, and Have a good one.